CJ Moore joins us now from theathletic.com. He wrote a story today worth checking out on Dalton Knecht, his development at Tennessee, and before he arrived in Knoxville. CJ, thanks for taking time to join us. I think you also, did you describe yourself as running for president of the Dalton Knecht fan club a few weeks ago when you maybe first wrote about him and his arrival at Tennessee?
Yeah, I think in my weekly top 25 back in maybe November, I think it was after the first or second week of the season, I declared myself early. So
Yeah.
he's been awesome. I mean, he was a second team All Big Sky guy last year. Like these up transfers usually don't work out the best, and the second team All Big Sky guy, you don't expect to all of a sudden be, considered maybe an All American. So his kind of rise out of nowhere definitely caught me by surprise early, and it's been cool to see to learn more about his journey. After declaring myself president and really diving into what I was what the cause I was leading.
Yeah. So, what do you think, or what stood out? What did you learn when you wrote the piece on him and talked to some of his previous coaches as well as people at Tennessee now about Dalton Knecht?
Just that he is a guy who really, really, like sometimes it gets overblown that, oh, a guy's a gym rat. He loves being in the gym, he loves working and stuff. Like this kid's like a different animal. His JUCO coach texted me this morning. He's like, from from a junior college perspective, like Dalton was a unicorn. And just it's funny how everybody has these different journeys, and the COVID year has kind of given us like these surprise All-Americans that we wouldn't have had in the past. Because like Jaden Ledee, for instance, at South Dakota or San Diego State, he's in his fifth year. Last year he was just okay on a team that made the national title game, but like he's putting up ridiculous numbers this year. Wouldn't have happened without the COVID year. Dalton would have graduated and been off to probably play overseas if it weren't for the COVID year, but able to transfer to Tennessee and have this magical season. So he's a guy that it's definitely benefited because he was a late bloomer, like as I talk about in the story, like 5'6" as a high school freshman, no D1 offers out of high school. So just it's cool to see a guy like that who his mom told one of the coaches that like a year ago we'd go, he was playing not too far from where he grew up, and they could go out in public and nobody would know who the heck he was. Now he goes to Target in Knoxville and like people are bombarding him for autographs and pictures. So kind of cool to see a kid be able to experience all that.
He's a really good player. I think if he would have went anywhere, he would have been putting up points. But we saw him the last couple of games almost touching 40. How much thought do you put in to Tennessee kind of being the perfect spot for him because of Tennessee's offensive woes last year? Now you bring him in, and he's bringing instant offense.
Yeah, and that's what they were really after. And it's kind of funny to like look back at the teams that were recruiting him and like imagine if he were at Kansas, for instance. Like they got Nick Timberlake, who has been kind of a bust, not kind of been a bust. And if you just slide him into their starting lineup, like they're far and away the national title favorite, right? But I think he's made Tennessee a team you have to talk about for the national title because this is a group that a year ago, the defensive end, they were good enough to be there, right? Like they were good enough to be a championship contender on the defensive end, but they weren't that on the offensive end. And I think they, smartly realized they needed a guy who could come in and really be a alpha scorer, as Rod Clark described in the story. And but at the same time, like I think they knew that they were getting a pretty good player and probably had a sense this summer that he was pretty good, but like they'd be lying if they said like we thought he was going to be this good, like dropping nearly 40 in a couple straight games. And I don't think anybody saw this coming, and it's just been kind of the perfect storm of what a team needed and what he's been able to provide, and also being able to like just feed him with confidence. And I think the more they fed him with confidence, like the more he's just taken off.
CJ Moore is with us from The Athletic. You can read his story on Dalton Knecht and Tennessee's basketball team that went up earlier today, theathletic.com. to read it. And talk about Tennessee's potential now and what you learned there and what others said, because I think the comment was, hey, if we wanted to keep shooting some of his teammates, we'd be what we were. We want to be something different. How does this change what Tennessee can be as they project toward the postseason with what Dalton's able to do offensively?
Yeah, I think lately what you've seen out of them, with it couldn't just be all Dalton, right? Like he could be, it can't just be him putting up these, because you can't expect him to put up almost 40 every game, right? But I think where they've improved lately is, one in December, like he wasn't the same guy. His ankle was really bothering him. They said, he probably should have shut it down for a little bit, but he wanted to keep playing. But the fact that Zakai Ziegler now is like getting back to the speed and just playmaking ability that he used to have, and probably is an even better version of that. To be you got to have multiple guys that can get into the teeth of the defense, can get paint and spray it out. And I think having that like other guy to help him now, like they can kind of take turns sometimes, like you saw in the Georgia game. Like it was kind of them taking turns of, let's just spread the floor, set a high ball screen, and let them rock. And both those guys are capable of doing that. And one thing that one of the coaches mentioned to me is like, not only can we go to that offense now, but it lets everybody else rest. And then we can kick ass on the defensive end, right? Because those guys aren't so tired. So it's a team where I think people really realize what their roles are and kind of where they fit and what makes them successful. And I think Tennessee is just kind of figuring that out. I was at the Maui Invitational. I did a lot of the reporting there, and I think they were already a good team, but I don't think they were quite, they were still kind of feeling each other out, like who fits where, who attacks when. And I don't think Sakai was right yet. And the fact that he's good now and Dalton's over the ankle thing, like I think you're starting to see really what Tennessee can become. And I think they're one of probably the handful of teams that's capable of winning national title, probably one of the best 5, 6 teams in the country.
CJ Moore, Athletic, and I encourage everyone to go and read this article on Dalton Knecht. Anything that you found really interesting that you didn't get a chance to put in the article that you can share with us?
I think that, one of my own observations, and I didn't want to get too nerdy and gritty in the feature telling of this. Like, I thought if you go back to the Maui Invitational and you watch him against Purdue, I thought that like they were really raking in when he was driving, and I think he was seeing crowds and he was seeing like athletes maybe that he hadn't been used to seeing in the past. Like there were a couple games in my Invitational where I just thought it was a little overwhelming for him. It was like the first time he'd really seen like high level defense. And I think he's getting better at being quick to get to his spots and that not bugging him as much. And also it's helped that, other guys are playing better and it maybe opens the floor up a little bit. But that's one thing I've kind of noticed just watching a lot of his clips, watching a lot of Tennessee games lately that I didn't quite, I try to save the top 25 for those nerding out moments. I didn't get quite too deep into that in the story, but then outside of that, most of the good stuff made it, I'd say.
What stands out about Tennessee's top competition in the SEC as they go through conference play ahead of the postseason? One of those top contenders would be Alabama. They played this weekend. What do you see around the SEC, the teams that Tennessee will be trying to beat out within the conference?
Well, Alabama's got a terrific offense. I think Mark Sears is like having a crazy good year. If you look at his jump shooting numbers, like they're pretty ridiculous. The shots he's making, how much they rely on him and taking, some tough shots, and he's shooting the heck out of it. And I think that's a team that like played good teams close in the non-conference. And it's why you saw their metrics so high, because they played an insane schedule, but they didn't really beat anybody. I still think you're kind of waiting for them to like beat somebody really good, because while they're undefeated in the conference, they haven't played those best teams. So we're going to get to see that this weekend, right? Like, okay, now have they taken a next step? Can they really beat a good team? But that's a team that I think will be there most of the year. I think Kentucky and Alabama are kind of similar in that like really, really talented offensive teams, really fun to watch, play really fast. Defensively, something left to be desired. They're not at Tennessee's level on the defensive end. So it'll be interesting to see if those teams kind of improve on that end. But to me, those three teams in Auburn, who again, kind of in a way is the like Alabama in that their metrics are really good, but they haven't really beaten anybody. But their record's better, right? Because they didn't play quite the competition Alabama did, and they've just been beating the crap out of everybody. Every single one of their, I'm not sure what they went by the other night. I think they won by double digits again. I think every one of their wins all season has been by double digits. Like that's just crazy. So to me, it's like that group of four teams that I think has kind of separated themselves from the rest. And there's other teams like A&M that could be sneaky and maybe kind of come on second half of the year like they did last year. But those four teams to me have kind of really separated themselves.
Hey, before you go, CJ, can Dalton get into the Player of the Year conversation realistically? I think odds-wise, he's actually right up there. Part of the reason I asked that, Zach Edey looks like he's such a big favorite right now. But what do you think about that conversation still several weeks to go before it becomes real?
I'll be working on that like a kind of a mid-season like check-in column this on Monday. And I think I'm ending it with like, can anybody else win National Player of the Year besides Zach Edey? And the answer is no. Like, as long as he doesn't get hurt, like he's putting up even better numbers, by the advanced statistics as a year ago, and the county numbers are about the same. I think Purdue's going to be the best team kind of from start to finish. So I don't think so. Now, if Dalton wants to keep scoring almost 40 every game, then yeah, you got to start to talk about him. But I don't know that like he can keep if he can somehow keep this up, like holy crap. But I don't think it's reasonable to expect anybody to keep that up. So I think it's Zach Edey and everybody else, but I do think he has a shot to be a first team All-American. And for a guy, he's on my midseason first team All-American team that we're putting out next week. And for a guy that was a second team All Big Sky last year, second team, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
It's crazy. What a path Dalton Knecht has taken to get to this point. CJ Moore wrote about it today for theathletic.com. Go there and read the story ahead of tomorrow's Tennessee-Alabama game. CJ, thanks for taking time to hop on the show with us today. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for spreading the word about the story, guys. Appreciate you.